things don't get happen is that the bureaucrats think that once they've given to the consultant, and I've been consultant around the world for many organizations, including IMF, World Bank, WHO, others, and so on, they think that once you have given the job to the consultant, your job is done. Consultant will do things for you. And even with the NGOs, so NGOs are going to do elementary education, so we don't have to change. We don't have to improve. That is not the way that we can get the progress that we need, because there should be internal organizational change. It is the organization that delivers services. There is no the government that delivers services. We talked about the government employees. All over the country, there are about 23 million government employees, union and state governments, and another 4 to 5 million in the public enterprises. So close to 28 million people are employed. The number is not large, as she said, but we have a huge skill imbalance. So if you see grade A and B employees in government, those are less than 8-10% or around there of the total. 50% are below. And that means there is a skill mismatch, because the governance issues have become hugely more complex than what they were before. But if these guys don't have skills, and we don't get skilled people into those jobs, that's where our civil service issues are, not in terms of the numbers per se. So we got this 5, and in each of this we have to match supply and demand. Now, the mistake that is often made is that the governments think that I pass a legislation, we'll have universal education, we'll have universal social security, we'll have universal health care, we have this, we have that, my job is done. But what happens in those who know a bit of economics? We go back to demand and supply. Suppose my supply curve for education, healthcare is relatively inelastic. That is, it's not very sensitive to price. Now, if I increase demand by passing the legislation, everybody will have this education up to this level for healthcare. What happens? Will the quantity go up if the supply curve is relatively vertical? No. You will get increase in price. Then you have price controls, as we are seeing, and that price controls will be evaded, and all the social problems will arise. So you need to create supply as well as demand. They have to keep pace. And in each case where you will have to see is that if I want to do this, do I have increased supply? So one example from the central government is that as they are increasing the healthcare coverage, there will be 150,000 centers, primary healthcare centers, that will be set up. And that would mean that they are increasing the supply, increasing medical schools, increasing others, where the government could do more, and this is part of the constructive. So what she said is very right. We need to criticize, but we need to do it constructively, as I said, not with an agenda in mind, but as a way to improve further. There's always room for improvement. So as a way to improve further, we have not done enough on preventive healthcare. So day before, when I was in Vadodara advising an organization, they showed me their hospital and their plans and so on, on healthcare. And I said, where is the preventive healthcare unit? Where is the unit for Ayurveda and homeopathy? They didn't have it, because these were all allopathy doctors. And so I said, set it up and get the allopathic doctors to be sensitized. Teach them first, change their mindset, that you work closely together, that there is enough demand out there and need out there that, and this is a charitable organization, so it is not a commercial one. So even then they will have challenge to do that. But think of a system So this is where the systemic plan is what I like when you presented this, that there is a think about integrating and in a systematic way where supply and demand are both being considered together. Okay? Now let me look at we have to minimize imbalances in demand and supply. We will have to have sector-specific risk mitigation strategies, such as in agriculture and infrastructure, and they have to be well integrated and implemented. Now, what are the other areas to consider? One area is government failure. Now, this is a technical term that you will find in any textbook in public finance. What is the government failure in here? Poorly designed and administered taxes. So in Haryana, I went to one of the cities, and they have a small license fee tax. So I asked the municipal commissioner, how many people should be paying that tax in your city? He says 80,000. I said, how many are actually paying? He said 15,000. So I said, your reform strategy is very clear. Don't ask me. He was asking me for more money. SFC should give us more and so on. I said, yeah, I understand your need. But you need to do something yourself. You got 80,000 taxpayers and you are collecting from 15,000. Why aren't you setting it up? So look at the property tax, for example, in our country. Similar issues. How do you create that capacity to collect? So there is a willingness to charge and a willingness to pay. There is a lot more willingness to pay today than there is willingness to charge by the policymakers, because the free is considered as a government, gets popular if you give it free. Now, where it is well done, like in Gujarat, when our Prime Minister was CM there and laid the separate agricultural grid to get the electricity, where now the farmers are paying, but getting assured supply, that is working out much better. And in day before yesterday, I saw an example in Gujarat, in one of the small villages. That small village is now a zero waste village. Nothing is getting wasted. There is a segregation of solid waste management. Each household is paying 100 rupees a month. Okay? That willingness to pay and the willingness to charge and to persuade is both there. That is matching. So in many cases that matching is not there, and they are now being studied by UNICEF and others. It is a small example. Lot of wherever they have used this diagnostic to understand and apply it in their context, they have done well. Poor enforcement of property rights and contracts. We have a lot of encroachment of government land, of private land as well. So one of the things we suggested in Haryana, and they may or may not be applicable in Rajasthan, is that a lot of panchayats have got land from which they can earn income. They could be very rich, not just by selling land to government and then having fixed deposit, but they've got land which they can lease out, they can do things. But land is encroached. So we said use the GPS drone technology to try to map that, give it to them, and put income earning trees around the village so that panchayat gets regular income from that. So this is we have applied this framework in our Haryana report, and that's why I'm suggesting that you might want to read that, at least parts of that, where we have done that. Weak public financial management. Many governments don't have a treasury department. And so public financial management is extremely important. Our budgeting is, a lot of urban and rural bodies budgeting is still on paper. There is even the double entry bookkeeping is not there, let alone accrual accounting and so on. So we can improve a lot. Macroeconomic and coordination failure, insufficient competence, political neutrality, and economic reasoning, understanding of the judiciary. This applies to, maybe concern to all of you, that the when I ask the judges that I meet, and I say, how much economics training do you have? They say none. Now, you don't have any economics training. I hope in law you have a course in law and economics, because it's very, very important to have understanding of economics, because a lot of you litigate, as a lot of judges do, has got economic implications, and huge. And many times they are very perverse, the way those things have been done. And on the top of that, if you don't have political neutrality and others, it creates problems. Insufficient compatibility of regulatory regime with growth and fairness. Nothing is absolute. Environment is not absolute. It's important, but you got to have some growth as well. So otherwise you are not going to. So you can't have a one cause mind that I'm for environment, I'll stop everything in the name of environment. And sometimes the public interest litigation is misused in this particular way. There is market failure, I won't go into that, but there are problems in other areas where we had touched on social norms of behavior. Poor geography, some parts of Rajasthan have poor geography. How do we do that? How do you overcome that? Organizational capacities to deliver public services and weak complementary markets. So I already mentioned of the elites, and particularly today, we as educated people and more the young educated people, their focus should be how do we make India strong and count in the world affairs, and not waste energy on other noises and other things that are coming out, and socially ostracize those that don't follow that. I've spoken enough. I have got a lot more of this, but I would leave with you the Maharashtra government water yojana is called Jal Yukta Shivar Abhiyan, where that has been able to beat the tanker lobby, because Maharashtra has got very strong, elsewhere too, I suppose. But the Maharashtra CM has been able to understand that I'm not going to learn from growth model about how to have drought management. My local political economy problem is the tanker lobby, and how am I going to tackle it? So today, in this summer, there were only 2 tankers instead of 200 tankers that ply in the Latur and other drought-prone areas. Okay? And then I have suggested is the urban shared services center. And that is a issue that, let me explain to you the concept. What is the shared services? It's that when you have a high capital requirement and high skill requirement, you set up centrally and the others share those services. So we have urban management in Haryana. They told us we don't have engineer, lawyer, accountant, others, and so on. So we said, okay, we'll give grant from the State Finance Commission to start to the urban department. They set up a shared services center, including property tax software, which all cities can use, rather than each city going for their own property tax software, which they can use, and they will be provided free from the state to the cities. And now cities can't say we don't have capability to spend. So we have explained that shared services center in there. I think I've spoken more than my time, so I will stop here and thank you for the opportunity.